but we...
Because I was with the measure consultant.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. There still are.
Yeah, still on.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still doing the same stuff. That's
We're going to start?
Also doing,
okay, no,
sure.
Would like to start? I can start.
We have more people.
Hello, everyone. I should knock the gavel. Welcome to our community meeting for sustainability. We are kind of in a different setup here where we have people online who are going to be participating. We're going to have working groups around. Some people up here are part of the design team, the OPM team, the Killam Building Committee team, and things like that. I'm wondering if we can just quickly go around and introduce ourselves. I'm going to start by introducing our OPM project manager is Susanna Young. Our Killam principal, Lindsay Fulton. So on our design team, we have our project manager here, Jenny Katajimaki. Lee Shorewood, and
Mamshi Guje.
I just met Vamshi. John Coote is on our Permanent Building Committee and on the Killam Committee. Ed Ross is head of Finance Committee, and he is on our Building Committee as well. Jane Wellman, Operations for the town, and she's on our committee too. So do you mind just quickly? Yeah.
Raymond Porter, Town Climate Advisory Committee.
And part of the working group too. Jim?
Jim Boyd, neighbor.
Hi, Jim.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Johnson, Climate Advisory.
Great. Tara?
Tara Gregory, Town Meeting Member.
Mike Holmes, about an ex in Killam School.
Great. And it looks like we have all of our tech people here and our newspaper people. So
Awesome.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Carla. We're really excited to be here and continue to share with you about what's going on with the project. And we have a nice intimate group today, so we're going to be able to have a real discussion rather than, this is kind of a very awkward setup for a meeting of 2, 3, 4, 5 members of the public and more than 5 members of the project team. So thanks for bearing with us with
And
that.
excuse me for 1 second. Online, we have Karen Herrick, who's our vice chair. Anybody else online?
Yep. We
Well,
have
then
other
other people.
participants from the public.
Okay, great.
So when we
How many approximately?
We have 11 participants online. And
Oh, that's great.
over people in the room.
Perfect.
So when we
And I do
go,
believe we have members of our net zero committee online, at least one.
Okay. And just so we know, in order for the public to hear us and people on Zoom, you have to speak into both mics.
Okay.
Thank you, Jenny.
so our agenda for today, we're primarily here to talk about the sustainability goals for the Killam Elementary School project. First, we're going to recap the project charter, which we talked about at the last community meeting, and we'll kind of fill you in on the final overall goals of the project. Vamshi, who's our sustainability consultant, will go through some of the sustainability baselines that we're working from and describe the sustainability planning process. And then we're going to talk about, we already have a set of sustainability goals, the goals that we've developed, working the sustainability working group. So with the members of the public, we'll review those, prioritize them, and get your feedback. So first, we're going to talk about the project charter. Oh, can you all see up there? Okay, that looks good. So the project charter is developed from what we learned at the first community meeting, which, if you attended, we were just identifying and brainstorming all the various goals and priorities, wishes, the visions, the values that people had for the project. We tabulated those goals. We ranked them based on the voting that people did, which we did a session with the Killam staff, and then we did a session with the public. And we arrived at these 6 goals, which are, no, I don't remember what they are. So, but Lee is going to go through them.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? And can they hear me online? Am I doing this right? I'm Lee Sherwood from The Architect. And so we do this quite often, and often what we do is we have a session, we meet, and then we come back and show you what we learned, and then check to see if you agree with that. Were any of you at the first community meeting where we talked about just project charter stuff? Raise your hand. Well, there's 2 or 3. And so what we did was we had this whole session where we had people write what was important to them in different categories for a new school in Reading. Many of your neighbors were here, by the way. Lots of people from the neighborhood. So there was a lot of talk about traffic and things and safety and things like that. And so then they also went around with little stickers afterwards, and they kind of voted what was important for them and what they thought was their priorities. And it makes sense, and people seem pretty happy with that approach. So all we're really doing right now is we're going to show you what we learned by Project Charter. Project Charter basically means the main goals of the project. They don't have to be too specific, but we're trying to get a sense of who you are as a neighborhood, who you are as Reading. You're different than any other community, and we need to learn that. That's our job. So we had that process. If we go to the first page here, and I moved over here so I could actually see it, because we're all looking in different directions, and there's one hidden. Oh, well, that's really nice. These glasses are wonky. Anyway, so again, welcome for those who just came in. So one of the we separated this into about 5 different categories. And this category is really about education. Please know that we've already spoken to the faculty as a community multiple times in different ways and had them go through the same process. Who better to tell us what's important for education than the families, but also the faculty and the people who work there every day? So that was very important for us to start. Nothing we say here today is in stone, right? It's not built yet, and it won't be even voted on for over a year. So we have a long process, so you're really helping us right now. So when we say built around the student, we got this message over and over that this elementary school is really about the students. And if you go into Killam, do any of you have had kids go to Killam? No? Well, if you went to Killam, I mean, it's just all about the kids and all of the artwork and the projects and the teachers. And we want to do a practical school, but
Lee, can you speak in? We just can't hear you in the back. Do you mind speaking up a little bit?
how's that? Does that work? Or does that need to be up more?
Even a little bit more if you can project.
So I really have to go full rock star on this?
You do. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. So the very first thing is that this has to be an educationally relevant school. Education has changed, and I think people recognize that, especially teachers who are going through those changes all the time. And they care about the learning environment. So here they're talking about having grade level classes like pods or neighborhoods, because you want to break down the populations so that they're intimate. Remember, we're dealing here with kids, not dealing, but pre-K, K through 5. 4 feet tall at the most, some are a little bit more. So these are little kids who, they really need certain kind of environments. Often they're away from home for the first time. But obviously, if we're going to do either a new renovation or a new school, it wants to really have a lot of flexibility for the future, and it wants to have integrated technology, and every teacher asks for a lot of storage. When you see the words like hands-on learning, it's what we always did, was make things and you learn from it. I don't know if any of you make things in your world, but I do. And I usually learn more from that than other ways. And so that's what a makerspace is. It's kind of teaching a kid real life work. And people ask for designated science areas, which their elementary school really doesn't have now, and kind of a central learning. Don't forget about reading. They also talked about something that wasn't always around, which are special education programs. That's what SPED means. And all states and all our towns are required to have special education services. But remember, when I was a kid, it barely existed. And so there's a lot of spaces and a lot of people that come into a school now to provide those services, and that's really important, that we have the right spaces for that. And the existing school doesn't have the right spaces for that. How could it? It was designed when they didn't have those. Having teacher planning offices, proper conference space, it sounds like a given, but when you have a school that you're just kind of working in the hallway or sometimes the closet, it doesn't always have those spaces. So whatever we do, we want to remedy those situations. And lastly, we're looking very seriously at the district's request at providing a pre-K center, or taking the pre-K program, RISE program, that's kind of scattered throughout the town, and maybe making an actual center where this is the one place. That would make this, this component of it central to the whole town so that everybody would get something from it. That's one way to look at it, so that everybody is invested. But also, it's a growing program that is fairly new and changing. And we think that we'll look at combining that in this project. Next.
So we need to go through all the...
Faster?
Faster.
Okay, much faster, yes.
I'm just wondering, I don't see up there designated spaces for art and music, and that's always been the first thing to go when we get crunched on space.
There will definitely be designated spaces for art and music. One of the reasons it's not there is because we're working with the state. They fund a lot of this, and we know how to do that with them. And that's part of the basic program. And yes, and they did talk about that, but it's a given, which is good. We asked people about what are community things for the larger community, what's important. And people said basically they'd like a balanced approach that really considers cost and value. This wants to be a value-oriented building. It wants to support year-round use, so people wrote air conditioning about 5,000 times, because that actually is a very, very pragmatic thing to put in a building, and they care about it being able to pass the vote, which means we really have to listen to people or they'll vote no. We don't want people to vote no. We want to design a building that really fits the context. If you're a neighbor, you don't want a building that all of a sudden landed from Mars or is way out of scale. We'd like it to fit. Even if it turns out to be a 2-story building or something, it wants to fit in your context of your neighborhood best we can. And it is an elementary school first, and then other things second. It wants to be able to be used on nights and weekends and be flexibly used, and it wants to really consider town sports and all the rec programs. Next. We're going to talk a lot about sustainability tonight, but in general, or actually very specifically, your town is a green town, has a lot of people here who care about sustainability, and we'll probably talk about that more today, but Reading has its own initiatives. We're going to go after tax credits and rebates and all kinds of incentives. The MSBA, the state, gives us could give us a lot of reimbursable money for making this a LEED net zero-ish building. And but also sustainability means that it's durable, easy to maintain, lasts a long time, acoustics and all of that. Next. It wants to be safe and healthy. There are people here who know the neighborhood and know that it's sometimes not easy to drop off your kid and have them go to school and not worry about them. We want to change that as best we can. Drop off and pick up is a situation. We were at the pickup one day at 3 o'clock and it was all over the neighborhood, right? So we want to help with that. We have a traffic consultant. We want to have safe site. We want to do secure environment for getting in and out of the school. And we want it to be a healthy, safe school. Next. And really importantly was the sense of belonging that Killam has now. When people walk in, the teachers all say they love each other, which is odd because most teachers don't always get along, but they all get along. The kids seem really happy, but what they need are spaces that can support their programs. And we don't want to lose that sense, that scale and that sense of welcoming, and that was very, very important. We want to make sure that everyone is heard, especially in that school community, and it wants to be that kind of school. That's what we learned. Is that okay for now? That was just a brief, that's what we've heard so far.
Thanks, Lee. So those project charter goals are going to inform our design work as we continue to develop the design for the next 2 years approximately. So Vamshi is going to go through the sustainability, kind of some of the baselines that we're working from and the process.
Thanks.
Here, if you want to run the presentation.
So just so you know, Vamshi is our sustainability expert. He does a lot of schools. He knows a lot of this stuff. And he's going to partly this is going to be a little bit about education, about what's going on in the world today for school construction.
Thanks, Lee and Jenny. When we say sustainability baseline, what we mean by that is there are several requirements. These are we must meet. So we're not starting from zero, but we are starting at a much higher level. As you know, the energy codes are getting more and more stringent, and the requirements from several different agencies are also being upped. So we must meet. And what the charge for this team, or for us and for this whole design team, is to actually not only meet it, but push the envelope beyond that. But to begin with, we wanted to actually give an overview, a summary of what these baseline requirements are. And these baseline requirements are coming from several entities, as you can see on the screen. The first one is MSBA, the Massachusetts School Board. And then we have the statewide Massachusetts climate law. It's a law, it's not a policy, as you know. And then we have Town of Reading sustainability goals. The first one, MSBA Green Schools, it's important to talk about this one because there is funding opportunities. Obviously, it's an MSBA project. So for the first one is to get the 1% reimbursement. You have to meet these base requirements that's on the left side of the screen, which is meeting a LEED certified building. It has to be LEED silver level. And then the stretch code. And again, stretch code is quite stringent. It has been recently adopted. We are working on several school projects, and we are trying to navigate through the complexity of the stretch code and what it takes to meet it. And it's a really good baseline. From sustainability perspective, I am pretty happy where it is going, but there are some challenges to it that we will figure it out. And we're not going to talk about how we will meet those challenges today because we still have to work through the design process. So the stretch code, in a nutshell, requires us to focus on the passive strategies first, reduce the demand. And this is typical of any net zero high performance, low EUI. EUI stands for energy use intensity. This is how we benchmark different buildings. The first principle they use is reduce the load on the building so that your loads are small, then you don't need complicated systems, and then you don't need large-scale renewable energy systems, and it's the best approach. All right. So the stretch code is actually also guiding us towards that direction. So we have to really meet very stringent demand numbers for both heating and cooling. And again, the stretch code has several other features that go beyond just that, which includes providing the EV charging stations, considering PV systems, battery storage. There's a few more things that tie into that stretch code requirements. And as part of the same thing is also the commissioning, MEP and envelope commissioning. And forgive me if you already know what commissioning is, but this is making sure, the process makes sure whatever we designed actually is going to be installed to that standards and specifications and will be operated in the same fashion. It's very important because we see in a lot of buildings that design intent doesn't carry through the construction, and for a high performance building, we want this commissioning and it has to happen on an ongoing basis because, the facilities people change, their understanding of the building changes. So having this ongoing process is critical for a high performance building, and it's a requirement as part of MSBA. And then there are other requirements from LEED rating system as well, from materials and indoor environmental quality. Obviously, we look a little bit deeper into that as we move forward on what those credits are and how that relates to the project. Then that is the base, so that is the 1% that we must meet. And if we want additional reimbursement, now we got to push that even further. There is 3% additional reimbursement. The 4% is like for the total. That is 5 lead points, gives us 1%, and then specialized stretch code. This particular requirement requires us to, electrify both space heating and domestic hot water. And I don't want to get into too many details about it, but the idea behind this is if you have the ability to electrify your heating and domestic hot water, you have the ability to offset most of the energy used on site as well, because it's all electrified. And electrified heating means your efficiency of a system also improves significantly. We're not talking about electric resistant, which is only 100% efficient, but if we go the route of electrification, it would be heat pumps, which are roughly 250 to 300% on an average. So that's significantly better. So these are some of the MSBA requirements. You can ask me any questions if you want me to get into any details. And then the Massachusetts climate law, it is much broader than what you see here on the screen. They talk about transportation, equity, battery storage, so many other aspects of sustainability. But just to focus on this part, which relates to the buildings, they have set certain targets for the buildings to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, which GHG stands for that, 50% by 2030, which is not too far, and then 75% by 2040, and basically 100% reduction by 2050. The baseline is 1992. It's a little bit older baseline, but that's the baseline they're using. And the building is going to stand for that long, 2050, right? So we need to future-proof this building as well. We cannot be just thinking about just short-term, once the building is built, yes, we are meeting 50%, but the building is going to still stand in 2050. So how do we meet those standards? Again, these are the baselines, so we will meet these things. And then Town of Reading's sustainability goals. I think for most of you are already familiar with these requirements, so I'm not going to go into too many details. You can read them on the screen. But again, these are going to be our charge to make sure we meet these requirements as well and goals. In the nutshell, all these requirements are, directing us to the same point. And as a design team, we will figure it out. We'll figure it out how to attain these goals. And that is the reason we are also meeting today, is to kind of get your inputs and feedback on what speaks to you in terms of goals. And I'm sure you have seen other projects or you read something on articles about sustainability and other high-performance buildings. If you like us to focus, we will evaluate them and figure out whether they are feasible and practical for the project. And as the design timeline is 2 years, so we have time, but also these things take time to evaluate. So that's the baseline where we're starting from. So just take a brief pause and see if anybody have any questions on that. Yes?
Do you know what the financial implication is from going from just the standard stretch code to the specialized code? Only Reading has adopted the specialized code yet.
Vamshi, can you just repeat the question for the people online?
Oh, yeah.
please?
So the question was, what is the financial impact of going from base code to stretch code? Stretch code includes, as I mentioned, the electrification of the whole building. So
Between the stretch code and the specialized stretch code.
Right.
yeah, so the stretch code is the base, and the specialized code requires the electrification. I don't have the numbers right now, but that is what we're going to talk about on how do we get there. So that's going to be part of the process of figuring out what is the cost impact of going from base to, when I say base, it's the stretch code, from stretch code to specialized stretch code.
So if I may, the idea is you're asking, are we going to evaluate the difference between this specialized, how much that cost, versus going with just the stretch, and to see if there's a balance there? And the answer is yes, that is what Vamshi is going to be doing.
To follow up on that, it's not necessary for the town to adopt a specialized stretch code in order for the building to be designed to that standard.
Yeah.
There is benefits in terms of the Green Communities program for the town to adopt the specialized energy stretch code for the town. For the building, it's not going to include a requirement for the building to be that standard.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's true.
Can we just repeat that? Can you repeat that?
Oh, the repeat.
Just for people online. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can repeat it back, which is, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, sir.
Raymond Porter.
Raymond Porter just made the great point that we don't have to be required to meet the stretch code in order to meet the stretch code. And the reason I went back to this slide, Vamshi, sorry, was just to point out that the reason we're talking about meeting the specialized stretch code is because the MSBA provides additional reimbursement if we meet the specialized stretch code. So that's why it's one of our criteria that we're tracking and considering and is on the table.
We have a question from the Zoom room, from Ms. Herrick.
What's the?
Oh, you know what, thank you. Jenny made the exact point I was going to make. She's way ahead of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
All right. So how do we get there? So these are, again, we are not talking about strategies, but the approach. And we have this time. How do we spend this time to get there? And we have a few visuals. You don't have to necessarily understand. This makes sense to me, but doesn't always make sense to everybody. But what you see here is an integrated design approach. So we are not making decisions, or the design team is not making decisions in silos. So we are all talking to each other simultaneously. That is the point of this graph. So you see the blue line is showing where we had the most impact on the project's ability to achieve the goals. It's very effective if we have these discussions early on, and that's why we are also having this meeting, but also front load all this analysis of evaluating different things. And the cost of implementation is much better controlled when it is done early on versus when these things are done later down the design phase. So that's the point of this. And so we'll talk with the architects. So all these different dotted lines and different lines that you see are different disciplines on the project. So the architects, mechanical engineers, site civil, landscape, and whatever impacts this whole process, we will be talking together and making decisions collectively. And in terms of high performance path, the first thing we do is we start with reducing the loads in the building. That, as I mentioned, is part of that stretch code as well. And we focus on envelope, how to optimize the envelope insulation, whether it's insulation in the walls, roofs, slab, foundation, type of windows, how large the windows should be, and how to best receive the natural daylight and utilize it. So all that would be done first. And this is a passive way, because once this is done, your loads are going to be smaller. That's what these bars are telling. Like every time a set of strategies are incorporated into a project design, your load is reducing. So the first bar is reduced to that. And then we focus on how do we reduce the interior loads, like natural light, daylight harvesting, so that you don't have artificial lights in the space when you have proper daylight. And especially for daylight learning spaces, daylight is so critical. There have been studies that show good natural daylight impacts the grades of students. So it's not only impacts the energy performance, but also the students' productivity. And then talking about the LED lights that has become standard now on most of the projects, smart controls, occupancy sensors, so that will also reduce the load further. And then once we have these two things established, we get into comparing high-performance mechanical systems. So these will be how you deliver your heating, cooling, ventilation into the space. And there are thousands of ways you can do it. And we will figure out for this particular project, what best suits and how can we deliver, heating, ventilation, cooling, while providing the highest level of comfort to the project. And I just heard this at the beginning of the meeting, cooling was so critical, right, as part of the project charter. Those would be part of that discussions in there. And then the green line after that is occupant engagement. There's a famous saying that buildings don't use energy, but people do, right? So we can design whatever we like, but if we have no engagement with the occupants and the users, then the energy is going to spike during operations. So we want to make sure that education is embedded into the process as well. So we're talking about, okay, so your classrooms have, these many computers, projectors, can we talk to the teachers? Can we figure out a way so that we can optimize this usage? No fish tanks in the classrooms, that kind of discussions. And also engaging with the facilities so that they understand how these systems operate, I'm just throwing out an example, like, if you have natural ventilation in the building, don't open the windows while your heating and cooling are turned on, right? That's a simple thing, but it does happen on projects. So that level of engagement will further reduce, actually make that a reality, what we are targeting to design for. So once all these things are in place, then we actually look at the PV system or the renewable energy systems. That automatically becomes a smaller size, as you can see there.
I'd like to confirm that as architects, we've learned to actually design like this. Like we actually really orient the building, think of the envelope, work with Vamshi to do with that kind of stuff, the windows, everything, and then step it down until it uses the least amount of energy it can.
Yeah. Again, there's crazy lines here. This is a in-house developed tool. The idea behind it, you don't have to understand what it is, but it's a powerful simulation tool that we use to evaluate hundreds of, if not thousands of permutations and combinations of different things and try the right thing. And this is part of a tool that we use to, work with, Lee and Jenny and the team to identify that optimum combination of different parameters in the building. And the same way to the question earlier asked you, this is showing an example, and we make life cycle cost analysis and part of our analysis, because we don't want to just purely focus on energy use, but there are some systems that have much better return on investment than the others. So we want to understand, so what this chart is showing, HVAC systems, 1, 2, and 3 different options. And although some may have, higher capital costs in the beginning, the first cost, but there's a payback period of 7 to 9 years. So in the long run, it makes sense to invest in something that costs slightly more. So this kind of analysis also we look at in evaluating different systems. Doesn't have to be just HVAC systems, but it could be envelope systems, whole building systems as well. Again, I think John actually pointed in one of the meetings about operational versus embodied carbon. Embodied carbon is the carbon inherent in the materials, the amount of energy it takes to extract from the ores and then manufacture the materials and transportation of the materials to the site and the distributors. That is the embodied carbon of the materials. And this is showing what if scenario. This is just an example project looking at embodied versus operational carbon. So if you were to just reuse and do addition versus just renovate or new construction, what is the overall carbon footprint of the building? Not through purely operational aspects, but also the embodied aspect as well. So that's another approach. So these are the ways we actually work with the whole design team in trying to get to the project goals, sustainability goals. And we'll be working on those things. And I don't know if I should give maybe a minute for questions, anything on that?
Yeah, for sure. Don't all jump in at once. Anyone online for a question?
Hello, thank you very much for that. My name is Ilka. I don't have children in Killam, but I do live here in Reading, and as Karen mentioned, I'm also on the town's Net Zero Community Advisory Group. I don't have a specific question right now, but I would find it helpful as you're sharing content if you can pose a question. Because I'm sitting here thinking, this is super useful information, but what can I most usefully do with that information? So, if we're just sharing this for background, no problem, but if we're sharing this because we want you to endorse something or give feedback on something, I will find it helpful to know at the beginning. So apologies, I'm joining this whole process really late, but I would love to contribute where I can add value, but I'm just not sure where are the pieces you want contribution and where you don't. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and it's a perfect time to segue into the next section, because this is where...
People might have questions though, so...
No, I think that's good, because, until now, the idea was to kind of, as Lee mentioned earlier, educate, how we're going to approach it. So that was not part of seeking really feedback per se, but just answer any questions folks have. But this is where, the next section is where we will spend some time in terms of seeking that feedback or inputs from everybody here today. But before we seek this information, we want to just give an overview of the categories of sustainability. I mean, sustainability is so broad, but if you were to put in certain buckets and focus on those buckets, that would be easier to manage the topics. So What I'm going to do is in the next couple minutes or so, we give an overview of what these categories are, and then we have the goals that we worked with the Sustainable Working Group.
Yep, then we're going to break out, so the folks in the room are going to do an activity, and Lee and Vamshi are going to guide you, and I'm going to break out and moderate a group with the folks who are online, and we'll review the actual goals that we've written for the project and get your feedback on those. So, yeah, you can go ahead and kind of overview the categories, and then we'll break out.
Yeah. So the first category is sites and location transportation. This is how the building relates to its ecosystem or the locality and the connectivity to the neighborhoods. These are some strategies just to give you some ideas. This is not comprehensive. Obviously, if you have seen anything you read in newspaper or an article or saw it on another project, you can bring it to the table during the breakout session. Quickly, if you cannot read it from where you're sitting or we're watching this, rainwater management, protect and restore habitat. So the birds, if there are migratory birds on the path, how can they take advantage of the site that we have? Bicycle facilities, helping kids to actually bicycle. Young age may not be appropriate, but at least for the staff. Light pollution reduction, open space. So this is how we connect to the outdoors, per se.
We do have quite a few students who bike to school, so just thinking about how that fits in with the neighborhood, I think would be helpful.
Yep. The next category is energy, which most of you are familiar. Probably this is talking about the operational energy and the carbon emissions associated with the building itself, building's operations. So we're, in addition to reducing loads that we actually spend some time talking today, energy metering, to identify, where you're using a lot more energy than the other places, and unanticipated energy use. Renewable energy systems, HVAC we already talked about, and human factors, that occupant engagement I was talking earlier. Water conservation, as the name suggests, it's reducing the demand on water, potable water, and how to make sure there are no wastage of water resources on site by, smart designing of landscape, site civil work, collection of rainwater, and the type of indoor fixtures, so on and so forth. Materials and resources, again, locally harvested materials, locally sourced materials. The embodied carbon also comes into this category. You can think about sustainable timber, mass timber construction, reducing the construction waste, and diverting away from the landfills. And indoor environmental quality, this is talking about the comfort. So this has gotten a lot of attention in the last few years because of pandemic, and rightfully so as well, the amount of fresh air, the level of filtration, and also being very cautious about the type of materials we use in the building in terms of finishes, because they have off-gassing potential. They're red list materials, so reducing all those kind of things, in addition to making the spaces very comfortable, and also good, decent views to the outside, things of that nature.
When you design schools for a living now, if a child's going to spend most of their time inside, the materials that we use are really important. We all know about off-gassing and things like that, but also we use materials that are from recycled materials, that are from certain sources, all things that are on the LEED checklist, and we have interior designers who just know all about these materials and that are durable and very easily cleaned, because you just don't want somebody, messing with that all the time.
Yeah. And finally, any ideas that we don't have it in those buckets, but you've seen it, you have ideas, please bring forth those ideas as well. We're just showing dashboard systems, like how people are interacting with how the building is performing at that point, educational opportunities as well. Like we have schools where we open up, I think Swampscott, right, too, where the kids can see through the mechanical room to understand how the building is working. There's so many things you can do. So those kind of innovative ideas can be put under this category.
Okay, so now we're going to break out into, Lee is going to guide the group in the room, and I'm going to go with the group online, and we're going to talk about those actual goals. So, awesome. So could we actually go around and introduce ourselves to the room? Start, and then if it's, I'll just call on people, so I'll just go in order that you are on the screen. So I'm Jenny Kariamaki. I'm an architect at Valley Brensinger. You're going to have to get Lee going. So I'll take it to her. Oh. Half an hour. We have to shut this off in half an hour.
It's also this way, my skin.
The lights turn off at half an hour. John, you can leave your stuff. Some places
You already introduced yourself, but...
I'm intrigued by this. What is this?
There used to be a berm down there. All right.
Yeah, so, anyway, we met with a bunch of people, some of them were put together these things,
Kim.
these goals. Love you seem like really smart people who know what question, right? So the idea is, right, a real question. What I'd like you to do is
And Derek.
two at a time or so, look at the different sheets, read them, and kind of look at them and say, okay, just kind of.
Elizabeth,
If there are things
one of my
that you
colleagues,
say,
what are you doing here?
Under site goals, it doesn't say that. Right, simple and right. So, and then, after we do that for, let's say, 10 minutes, really just kind of, I'll walk around and we'll answer questions, like, oh, this means that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were also a Reading resident or just here to listen. Okay, thank you. How about Jack?
We're like, well, if everybody puts a sticker here, under this one, we know that we all care about this one. Another one
Or
less.
Kendrick?
We just want to get a sense of priority, even all these are already priorities, we just want to get a sense for the community. Is that fair? And wherever you go, I will.
Great, thanks for joining. And Mary Ann?
There's already somebody.
We'll go to Laura.
Yeah, just
Please don't
you know what, we're
introduce
not doing
yourselves,
this
that's okay.
rigidly. If you look at something and say, oh, I'm interested in that too, I mean, you don't have to write anything. But if you look at this and say, where's this? There's a thing that I want.
Under this heading.
Yeah, and you say, because these are overall goals, and these were two.
Let's just pretend like we're looking at this and talking about it.
Judah Lynn? Great. So go back to, sorry, I'm looking at two different computers.
Love a rain garden.
Love a rain garden. Who doesn't love a rain garden?
Can't see.
That's right. I'd like to see us do Oh my God. So we're gonna get back to the gym. Oh my God. Anyway, but it was good.
Oh, good. I was saying, like, any of these goals you think are, must, you're number one. Right. You could just put a number or, just an asterisk. Okay. And then we get the stickers later? Okay. Yeah, since we have the...
The staff.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I love it. It's such a great resource. So much of what that's the whole thing of like more in one place, just.
Sorry, I lost the connection for a minute.
Every school does a newsletter, and I'm always like, that's where you go. I read the top to bottom. But so many parents are like, oh, I stopped reading after the first paragraph. I'm like, we finally, after years, got all the stuff in one place for you. Then you can't even read the stuff that I remember from when I was, I've worked at a couple of different schools where I've reviewed for building like safety, and it doesn't seem to. So what kind of work is that?
We said love a rain garden.
I'm not scared of you. I don't know the energy. I did, but yeah, it's not the same. And the basics.
I don't know if it's going to be, this is fascinating. Don't you have detail that savings and the building federal system. Like the high school.
I'm just zipping around doing my
Air cooling system.
Utilize
Strong air. For the rest of the day, it is just.
So right across the Painter Road, Town Street.
Be aware of the geothermal.
But it wasn't a geothermal system that failed, it was this heat management cycle to try to cool the building with nighttime air. So that was, well, you have, so instead of incorporating air conditioning into the design, it's here, prioritizing here. They try to say, oh, well, we'll just do air management and use easy cool air.
Well, this is a June wash.
Right, it didn't work, so we're looking at it, we want to demonstrate more reliable systems that work. Because, demonstrate systems that have demonstrated reliability.
I was gonna say, so what was the issue? Why haven't they tried to fix it?
Because then what they did is
Hey, Jenny, you need a hand?
considering air conditioning for a start, not
Jenny?
so air conditioning system. That fixing a problem like this, we're dealing with a problem early, so we're trying to avoid that right now. So yeah, your point is well taken. If we want to be able to have a building in the evening and in the summer for whatever purpose, continuing education or whatever. So what we do is, I heard about it 1,000 times. It's not just we'll move to Maryland, we'll be fine.
I need to get my laptop on a different. Well, we're finally at the phase where we're not try to make our kids suffer, like, oh, I went to school without air conditioning, it's fine. Not entirely the same thing.
It sounds like the.
Yeah, and that's.
We can bounce off.
We need to get this year.
Can I get that? I wonder what those pictures are.
Is there this other one that's provided?
Yeah. This is a total.
Water system. That's a continuous hot water. Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Yeah, I guess I could.
About using
Yeah.
water, think about.
Hey, do you know how to?
Yeah, I was just trying to, but I didn't.
Systems are ones which.
Should be available. Because it's electrical based versus gas based.
But when you're talking about a school system, that may not work.
There should be a button on the headphones. Usually that's how they work.
Listen, there's
And
Yeah,
after you
it's-
press that, kind of device.
I would really like to see
This wasn't coming up. It's not.
solar thermal hot water system, which is actually
What type of device is this?
It's a sound
running from like something along the
cloud or something. I would know it when it came up.
That takes your water from 50 degrees, which comes out of the
Can I see?
to something whatever the sun can provide.
There's a button back.
It's free energy, right? And then give that to another tank, which then meets the demand. So, in other words, we can meet those peaks. And that way, you use less because you're preheated water. That's actually two tank system, almost opposite from a tankless system.
May I, cross out tanks. Give Jane a hard time.
Sound cloud, that's what it's called. They're supposed to go into pairing mode by just having the lid open.
Oh. Seeing it. Does the other one need to be in? Well,
No, I need to try something different. This is not working. Okay.
Long-term issues down the road.
does that all the time, bro. 6:32.
Can you hear me?
Does it every day. Yeah, every day he goes through a full recess.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Karen.
Or there are various different ways of doing it, but yes, there's a couple of different systems.
Sorry for all these technical difficulties. Are you able to hear me?
No, it does, because I have one in the house. And in the winter, it's fine, because
I know,
the,
this is a disaster. I can't.
panel
This is not working at all.
is a mini heat pump. It's a sealed tube with a refrigerator in it that heats a header, and the header is a glycol. And so, it's in direct heat, correct. It's in direct heat.
Another computer. The problem is Jane and I keep getting booted off the Wi-Fi, so has yours been stable?
Mine is booted off.
Yeah, so I'm just continually getting booted off, so I can't.
Just to have it.
Sure, right. Heated by the sun, yes, yes, yeah, that's it is, yeah. Water comes through the ground into the hot water heater, which doesn't get to the roof. Yeah, no, I have this on my house in Reading, and it's a series of tubes. So it's an indoor. But this would be 2 tanks. They're talking about tankless, which I don't think will work in a school environment because of the demand required. But this would actually maybe 2 tanks. You preheat the water with solar. Whatever you get, you get. It doesn't even really matter. And then that goes in the second tank, which is heated to whatever. Heated to
Transport, like easy, safe transport.
Yeah, they're all let out. Tremendous demand.
So I do like the idea of multi-cycle.
Yeah, and schools will see the same thing. I mean, kids go mad.
So sorry, we're having really a crazy amount of technical difficulties over here. Thank you, Karen, for jumping in and keeping it going. I'm not positive I won't get bumped off again because now I'm on Carla's computer and it seems like there's a problem with the
Yeah,
Wi-Fi.
this is fine for
Anyway.
home where the
We can
demand
see
is
the
low.
cycles now, and I'll just catch you up. We did briefly, we had one, a butter, and I'm not sure if she's a parent, talk about rainwater management concerns.
I made the mistake of
And then we just had another bring up, positive feedback for walking and cycling improvements and safe and traffic management to make sure that the bicyclists and the cars aren't trying to be in the same location.
Thank you so much, Karen. Ilka, you have your hand up.
Thank you so much, and well done for adapting. It's not fun. I want to say something which I think goes more to the last dot point about incorporating opportunities for science and nature-based.
No, it just dropped off again.
And I'm thinking to myself,
Her computer just froze. So, not really.
Yeah, it threw her off, it threw me off a few times.
are you interested in putting these guys? Hey
I
guys,
sent Karen screenshots or pictures of every
Feel, and that has a direct impact on children. There's a heap of evidence that it's a positive impact on children's behaviour, and children's learning. And what other people, other neighbours, community members think about that, just that it can actually work.
Any way we can.
Thank you, Ilka. Those are great points. Karen, do you think we're ready to go on to the next one? We have like 7 minutes here, so we probably should.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so on the energy goals we've identified are to reduce the building's operational carbon footprint by employing passive strategies and high-efficiency building systems, minimize fossil fuel combustion from the project and consider an all-electric building, and incorporate solar PV and geothermal systems if they make sense from a cost-value perspective. So any discussion about that?
Longer title or shorter title, depending on which way you want to look at it.
So Jenny, can you, with Ilka's comment, Can you talk to us about what kind of passive strategies are other communities using these days? What do you mean by that?
Sure, so it's basically everything that Lamshi kind of went through, the points that he kind of went through. So passive strategies means like designing a really good building that's has the right solar orientation, that has what we call a tight building. So it has to do with the envelope. So the walls are airtight, they're well insulated, the roof is well insulated, the windows are triple glazed and have certain, films and treatments in the glass that reduce the amount of solar heat gain that you get. So that's what we talk about when we say passive strategies. It's like everything that's and the baseline design of the building envelope.
Thanks.
Okay, can I go on to the next? I saw there was there any questions in the chat that I missed that I should pick up on?
So in each of so at the last point here, it notes that they make sense from a cost value perspective. I just take it that is going to be, that's a given for every one of the goals and strategies that we're exploring.
That's right.
That it's all going to make sense from a cost value perspective. There's going to be some analysis that will provide a return on investment, something to compare it to when we talk about other buildings or other within Massachusetts that have employed similar strategies or construction, and we'll be able to examine costs and how it's worked out. Just taking that as a given.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it's a great point. And the MSBA has some great presentation and slides already online. Investing in certain things, and obviously triple pane windows, although I don't know how many people are actually stretching for that, but making those kind of energy investments for the building envelope up front end up costing everyone less energy cost. And improving comfort.
So what has happened, Karen, is with the new energy code, which just came in, I want to say in this last summer, that's really pushed us to basically have to do triple pane windows in order to meet those energy code requirements.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very stringent. At least on the commercial side and the school side. So on water conservation, our goals are to conserve water through efficient indoor fixtures, water metering, and HVAC condensate capture, and utilize native plants that are low maintenance, require less water, and support the local ecosystem. Anything else we should consider there? The water conservation is maybe the less critical category for us living here in the wet Northeast. Yes, Ilka.
Thank you. I am just thinking with each of these things about fun ways and playful ways to engage students in these, and I just think there could be some fun for each of the goals. There's going to be some very serious work that needs to be done, but there could be some thinking about fun elements.
You didn't come up with 12.
I don't know, I don't expect on the energy agency district that was popular for a while, and we're using stairs, they're music, stairs that generate energy.
I think they're talking about
The other one,
but I would
water where there's some sort of
We will definitely look at it.
units that are fun and playful, just not doing things.
Yeah. I think one of our overall goals, is to incorporate learning opportunities and educational opportunities into the building. So we will definitely keep looking at those. Thank you for that.
The maintenance, we don't want that. There must be something about it.
And then on the materials and resource goals, want to select durable materials with low embodied carbon to reduce the building's total carbon footprint and incorporate solid waste reduction strategies, including recycling and food waste composting. So I understand there's currently a pilot program at, I think it's at Birch Meadow Elementary for food composting that has been going well. So we want to, hopefully we can expand that to the new Killam.
That's great. We're looking actually to roll it out to all schools in the so every time break requires a partnership with the Department of Public Works, to the town, and then so we'll have strategies in place for that school as well. So it should fold in nicely.
Awesome.
And then Lee brought up an interesting point, off-gassing. So I think, I asked the parent in this group whether they like less volatile compounds in the air and as little as possible. I'm going to guess the answer would be yes. No, a new school will have higher air filtration systems, higher capacity, but I think we could maybe emphasize, or how do you guys look at materials when you look at VOC rating?
Yeah. Yes. So we have one of our criteria, actually. Thank you for the lead-in to the indoor environmental quality section. Our first goal there is to select interior materials that promote occupant well-being, avoiding high VOC and red list materials. So red list materials, I forget the organization that maintains this, but some nonprofit out there that maintains a helpful list of unhealthy materials. So those include things like PFAS, of course, asbestos and lead. But some of those, volatile compounds that aren't in the VOC category. So we can, we do have that as one of our goals. And then provide natural daylight to all occupied spaces with operable windows and climate controls to allow for individual options and thermal comfort, and design spaces that support learning for people of all abilities with lighting controls and good acoustic performance.
One of the things that came up in our community center, senior center project, which is also in feasibility study, one of the residents asked about, climate control in individual rooms versus classrooms, and the architect was, quick to point out that, building with air source heat pumps, an amazing ability to suddenly have control over different areas of the school. Hot areas, or heat from hot areas can be rerouted between colder classrooms. So I know nobody's ever perfectly comfortable in today's school, so that might be a really exciting opportunity for the future.
Awesome. Yeah, we will. That's an area I don't know much about, but thankfully we have really expert HVAC engineers involved on the project. So I will take note of that and forward to them.
Do you think that there's a broader point there?
Yep.
Karen is so good at this. Is describing.
Do you want to come back together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
I'll tell you what, we'll gather, since they're still on Zoom, we'll just kind of gather for a second.
People will have different reasons for what.
Yeah, we can come back together. We're wrapping up.
Want to know that their kids are going to be like this.
Hi.
Sorry, I don't have the schedule on hand. Okay, so if you give us a moment, we're gonna bring remerge the two meetings back together. So just have to press a few buttons here.
That's okay, I might ask.
Oh, you know what? I have it on my laptop, so let me just dig it.
So,
Did I post it already?
I sent it to the,
It's in the town manager minutes.
So Lee?
But it's easier than we will go through it. Going to the city center. So this is kind of a filter, and we're looking through after talking to, I want to be informed that there's a next,
So Lee, can you just stand here? And you can speak to, the people online will also be able to hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Nice and loud.
Can you hear me, Karen?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, so all we were saying was, our job now is really just, we thank everybody for showing up. This was informal, and we want people, we saw what people wrote down, and we're going to incorporate it into our list. And then what we do is, we've met with the school building committee, then we met with a sustainability group, then we meet with the community, and then we'll probably bring this back to the sustainability group. But we also have your priorities, so if there's a couple of things here that really pop out, they'll make it into the weight of the, onto the list. Our next community meeting is,
I'm still looking for that.
we're still looking, but my understanding is what we're doing is we're doing these community meetings in subjects. So I know that one of the next ones is March 18th.
Site and traffic.
Good.
Here at 7 o'clock.
So that is very important for people, especially people who live nearby or are worried about safety and the kids being dropped off, picked up. But if you're in the neighborhood and you're worried about the traffic and how people move around, we have had, just so you know, we've been having a traffic engineer who we worked at Swampscott, which is a really very traffic-y town. So we learned a lot. They've been doing a traffic study where they come and they observe and they count cars and they're doing, so they're actually going to show up with some information. And then we're going to talk about different strategies for drop-off, pickup. Is there something better than everybody parking everywhere? There may not be. It's really up to you. And then we're going to ask for feedback, and we're going to ask for people's concerns, especially if they live nearby, about the neighborhood and the traffic and the safety and the kids, because we want to hear those things. Again, the building wants to look like it fits, but it actually wants to kind of flow in the place like it fits, so that it doesn't cause problems at different times of the day and all that. So that'll be a really important, but typically what we do is we'll actually maybe at the beginning of that meeting express what we learned here and give it back, just like we did with the project charter. And we'll say, this is what we learned. I won't take as long as I did today. And then we'll get into the site and traffic, which is going to be a huge part of the success of this project. Does anybody have anything to say before they get on with their school board committee? Yes?
Is it definitely now, is there a definite location for it? Is it definitely going to be on the site of the current Killam, or is it still up for discussion?
My understanding is that
The question?
the question was, is it definitely going to be on the site of the Killam site? And my understanding, having been hired, was that the town has looked at different sites. There's almost nothing that's sustainable or pragmatic or is owned, and that the Killam is a good place to keep the Killam school, especially because it exists as a school now. The trick, which we'll talk about when we look at the site, and because we've had a survey of the site done, is how do you build the school while the existing school safely is in operation, because that is the most functional, affordable, and quickest way to do something. Or, obviously, we're going to look at renovation and additions as well. All of those take phasing. Is that an answer?
Can I guess where she wants to go with this and then give you another answer?
Are you selling a piece of property?
So part of the process, and it will be done by like August, is to determine if we are doing a renovation addition, or a new building, and that is required by the MSBA. So part of that is, if it's feasible cost-wise for us to keep Killam and turn it into a school that's appropriate, we will do that. If the cost is too prohibitive to do that, then we will do a new building. So, and I know people have asked, well, could we keep that site as a senior center and put this somewhere else? We would be able to determine the cost of bringing that building up to code, not as a school, but potentially as another use. So that all comes up through the process, and the MSBA forces you to go that route. So that answer's coming.
And we rule out the area by the ice rink at this point as a safe place for the Killam School?
We haven't gone there yet because we don't have any numbers, right? But I mean, the way the town has looked at it so far, this is the viable space. We feel comfortable that if we have a new building, we can build it on this location and still keep the school functioning, which is huge if we could do that, and not disturb the kids while it's happening, while the building's happening.
Some of the answers you get are going to be a little fluffy because we don't want to say exactly yes or exactly no. But I will say that it makes all the sense in the world to put the Killam School on the Killam School site where it is. And I don't want to ruin your day or anything, but that's kind of just what we've been hearing, if that's fair. Yes?
What time is the next meeting? Is it the same time as this one?
The next meeting is March 18th, it's a Monday night, 7 o'clock, traffic and site talk here.
If you sign in, we'll email you.
And we're going to launch our website, and all the information will be on our website. So,
Communications?
No, I was just gonna say, the website's launching, tonight it's on the Facebook page. You can go to the town's Facebook page and we're linked, it's up at 7 PM. And all the project updates will be there, and just follow us on Facebook and we'll keep you posted for sure.
So please keep coming back. Thank you for your support. And by that, I mean you're giving us information that we really need in order to be more in line with who you are. Thank you.
thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And the school committee.
Thank you, LBA. Jenny, thank you.